Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. I am super pumped and very excited to introduce you to my guest, Grace Blakenship. How are you, Grace?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
So happy that you said yes. Grace is going to be our guest in the Master Number 11 membership on Monday, January 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, when we're going to be talking about that controversial subject of psychedelics. We're going to be talking about how can they help you to reach your higher self? What are the risks? What are the benefits? And specifically, we'll be talking about how can psychedelics benefit Master Number 11s. So Grace is originally from California, and she completed her undergraduate studies in psychology and drama at the University of California, Irvine. And during her education, she gained experience as a research assistant, and she's been working with teens with autism and as a child advocate for multidisciplinary child abuse investigation facility. So she currently works as an administrative director for a Nevada mental health group focusing on psychotherapy from a mind-body perspective. And in addition, she's in the process of obtaining her master's degree in integral counseling psychology through the California Institute of Integral Studies, where she plans to pursue certification in psychedelic assisted therapy following completion of her degree. And when I learned this about you, Grace, it completely blew me away because I've always wanted to do a talk on psychedelics for Master Number 11. So there you were. So we had a chance to meet online, and here we are today.
Yes, fantastic. The universe provides.
No kidding, right? So this is a new subject for a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around it, and I think information is so important and is really key to understanding what this is. It completely blew me away when you explained to me exactly what you hope to be doing in the not too distant future. Because I had an interest in ayahuasca, which we can talk about in a minute. Maybe not everybody's aware of what ayahuasca is, but you had explained to me that you're someone who would be able to help somebody through an ayahuasca experience, maybe during the experience, prior to the experience, or even post the experience. You'd be somebody who could really assist them in making the best of that experience.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different roles that psychotherapists can play in the experience. Mm-hmm. So there's some research models that have been kind of the standard in the research community, where you do have somebody sitting with you. It's an individual session with one person taking the we call it medicine. Mm-hmm. And they have a sitter sitting with them in that experience who usually has training in therapy. A lot of times we'll have two sitters, either two therapists or one therapist and somebody with some medical training.
Wow.
And so you can have that person help you through the difficult places in the experience. Or there are therapists who say, I don't want to necessarily be part of the experience itself, but I do want to support people with their integration afterward, because so much comes up in these experiences that that's where the real work is afterward of how do I make sense of this? How do I put it to use in my life? So that's a few different ways that therapists can show up. And then, with ayahuasca, there's a large cultural history that goes with that. From some of the South American countries, and it is typically done in more of like a tribal setting.
Okay, so let's just back it up a little bit to talk about, because some people might not be aware of what ayahuasca is. So let's bring it right back to basics. What exactly is a psychedelic?
Yes, so the kind of textbook definition is that it's a class of psychoactive substances. Some definitions call them hallucinogenics. A lot of people involved in this work prefer not to use that term. Mm-hmm. But they're a class of psychoactive substances that can trigger non-ordinary states of consciousness. And they typically act on serotonin receptors.
And so it's my understanding, from the little bit that I understand, that's why you're here, is that many people feel that by taking this route, by experiencing psychedelics, they can get to the root of a problem or an issue, or maybe the base of their depression or their anxiety, all those sorts of things. Sometimes they can get there a little quicker than with traditional therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that you'll hear a lot from people who have experienced this, especially people who have done traditional psychotherapy before, is that it's like 10 years worth of psychotherapy crammed into one afternoon. And so it's really just, you know, when you're in your regular state of consciousness, you can have so many defenses built up. You know, we have so many defenses that allow us to operate in the world in ways that we've learned to be in the world, that come out of some of our wounding. And so we're really defended against a lot of things. And psychedelics can help you get below some of those defenses that we have in place to even prevent ourselves from seeing what's going on with us. Right. And we can go there quite quickly.
And so is this something that, you know, say, for example, I had an issue that I wanted to approach, right? And normal methods of psychotherapy and whatnot, it's just not cutting it, right? And I'm just getting a little frustrated. I can't seem to get above whatever the issue is. If I was to experience psychedelics of some kind, again, what is a psychedelic? So magic mushrooms would fall into this category?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that fall in that class. So it can be magic mushrooms, or a lot of people will call it by the active ingredient, which is psilocybin. And then there's ayahuasca, the active ingredient, and that is DMT. Okay. That comes from some South American vines, but DMT is actually present in a lot of different plants. There's also 5-MeO-DMT, also called the toad medicine. So it comes from a particular type of toad that secretes it in its venom.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's super fascinating.
Toad spit, who knew?
yeah. Getting into some of the chemistry of it is just really its own just fascinating branch.
Yeah.
And then there's also ibogaine, which comes from the iboga shrub in Africa. So there's a lot of different plants. There's the mescaline, which comes from the peyote cactus. So many different substances. And then there's some that aren't classified as strictly psychedelics, but MDMA is, some people classify it as a psychedelic, some people say it's not quite, but a lot of times it is kind of lumped in with these discussions.
Right. Cool.
So, yeah, there's so many different routes you could go.
So I know one of the, like, I've got a real curiosity, but I've never experienced it, but I do have a lot of curiosity with it. But my concern would be someone who's never experienced this before, you know, what was the word? Psilocybin?
Psilocybin for magic mushrooms.
Right. So magic mushrooms, psilocybin, reasonably easy to get, you know, on the internet, whatever, you buy it from a reliable source. But I'm kind of nervous to do it by myself. You know, I mean, I would be nervous that it would bring up things that I wouldn't know how to handle or what to do with. What do you suggest in that case?
Oh yeah, I would never ever recommend for somebody to ever do this alone. Even people who are very experienced with these medicines, it can just have a really difficult experience where it's really necessary to have somebody there holding the container for you.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have the proper preparation and create safety nets for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, it's important to note this is not like grabbing a joint and smoking some weed and whatnot. This is an entirely different experience.
Yeah.
It makes me, I know there's an awful lot of Master 11s that I've talked to, because obviously that's who I specialize with, who tell me that they've gone off and they've done the ayahuasca experience. Sometimes it's been a very positive experience, sometimes not so positive. Some of them just go into it willy-nilly, and it's like, wow, you know, you're playing with something that's pretty potent here, and you might not be ready to receive what it is you get. You know what I mean? Like, and to be able, you might not have the maturity or the emotional maturity to be able to handle what comes up. So, you know, it's not something for the faint of heart. It's not something to be taken just as a recreational kind of a drug. Am I wrong?
No, I completely agree. And that's, I think, something that we really saw, and why I kind of in our talk, I want to get into the history a little bit to
Mhm.
understand why we're at the point we're at today, because
Yeah.
a lot of that comes from the way these substances were treated in the 60s and how it was kind of a very recreational, willy-nilly
Yeah.
kind of thing, and the backlash that happened from that, because these are very powerful substances. And historically, cultures that have integrated this into their structure and their way of being have had a lot of safeguards and a lot of ritual and ceremony around how they approach this,
Mhm.
to allow people to have the support they need to understand what's coming up and to work with it and integrate it in a way that's going to be helpful for their lives rather than creating more trauma or a problem.
Right. So it's not like, tripping out on LSD just for a one-time thing. I mean, it's something that you want to go into it with intention, I guess, rather than just having this big high and leaving, your conscious state for a while. It should really be quite reverent and something that needs to go in with intention, to solve something that you're looking to have solved. Solution based, I guess, is what I'm saying. Would that be fair to
Yes.
say? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, can you give me an example of why somebody would want to experience using psychedelics?
There's a lot of reasons that people come to this. In the research, what's most supported is, we all kind of struggle with anxiety and depression to some degree. It's kind of the
Master 11's do.
right.
Sure, yeah.
It's the common cold of mental health. We
Mhm.
all have some level of it, and I know from our talks that that's a concern for Master 11's.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have had some type of trauma in our lives. Maybe not something huge, but we all have little things that have felt traumatic, and so that's what a lot of the research has been supporting is psilocybin for anxiety and depression, MDMA for trauma, and so it can help. Yeah. Well, that's the thing with the research is they want to have a very specific, well-defined thing to determine what the effect is.
Right.
And so they've made it very specific, but that doesn't mean that these things don't have applications in other ways. And it's not only, those kind of things we consider like mental health difficulties, but just places in your life where you feel stuck. Patterns that you're doing over and over with family, friendships, romantic relationships. We all have them. We all have our patterns that we.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so some more that just personal growth and seeing our patterns for what they are. And a lot of people also come to this for spiritual reasons. They're on a spiritual path, and they really kind of want that help in growing that.
Right.
Not everybody wants that, but it does tend to open that door for a lot of people.
So and this might not even be fair to ask, but I used to do, I was, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I don't do it anymore, because my biggest interest, of course, was doing past life regression therapy. And I'd be kind of like, if they're just going to lie on the couch and drool, I'm like, I got places to go, people to see. If this is not going to get any more interesting, I'm out of here. But what really got to me, and that's why I gave it up, is the whole process was driving me crazy. However, I totally believed in it. I would never want to see anybody who just wanted to go in for the purpose of entertainment.
Yeah.
I really wanted to help people who wanted to understand why they had this unfounded fear or phobia in this lifetime. Why are they feeling this anxiety? Why can they not get past this relationship? Things like that, like very specific things. I found that the therapy usually ran better when we had something specific rather than just coming in for, entertainment purposes. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the recreational people kind of come in. There are people who say, oh yeah, I've done like mushrooms in college and it was fun, or I did LSD, you know, I watched the walls melt, or, you know, whatever. And that's not what this is.
Right.
Because this is such a powerful thing. And I think that's where people get into trouble, is when they approach it kind of in this recreational manner of, you know, I just want to see some stuff and have fun.
Yeah.
And you're opening the door to your subconscious and to kind of some of these spiritual worlds that can be really frightening and overwhelming if you're not expecting that and you don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it. And
Yeah.
you know what, we have to respect it, because this is a very, very powerful plant medicine. No different than taking a narcotic. You know, I mean, I've had to in the past take, for pain relief and whatnot, I've had to take certain narcotics years and years ago. And I went on a little rocket ship ride that I never want to go on again. So, you know, I took one and that was it. I'm good. Right? It's just no need for me to go back there again. I wasn't prepared for what it is I saw. So, yeah, you have to be really, really careful with it. So how might Master Number 11, sort of in a nutshell, we're going to really expand upon this on January 25th when we get together on our live event, but how might Master Number 11s benefit from experiencing psychedelics?
Yeah. So, you know, some of what we've talked about, that they are prone to some of this anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And that can really help alleviate that. It can kind of help you see what's at the root of some of those feelings. And ways. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It gets a little deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. Because some of us, you know, we have these feelings and we don't know what to do with them. We don't know where they're coming from. You know, or we've just kind of been in a pattern with how we're responding to them. And it really helps you expand your view of what's going on to attack it from a different way.
And, you know, I feel that since December 21st, when we went into the Age of Aquarius, I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert in that field because I'm not, but I sure as hell have felt it. I don't know for you, but wowzers, what a shift it's been since the 21st of December, 2020, where we're all being kind of pushed to become our authentic selves. We're really, it's like we're all being stripped of what isn't serving us any longer. So, you know, my girlfriend who's an astrologer, Holly Poole, she talks about it being kind of akin to a road, right? So when the road starts to break apart and there's potholes and, you know, cracks and whatnot, it's because something on the underneath of it is erupting and needs to get out, right? And so all this pavement cracks apart and they have to take that all away so that the new can emerge, right? And she said that's kind of why a lot of us are experiencing headaches and a little bit of depression, and God knows, you know, the vibration on the planet right now is pretty low given the pandemic and the situation in the States and all that kind of stuff. Everywhere, there's issues everywhere, right? But we're all kind of tuning into it collectively more so. But we're all being pushed to step into our authentic self, to celebrate what makes us unique. Would you say that experiencing psychedelics might assist in that process?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I know that's something kind of I've heard from you with Master 11's, is that feeling of really wondering, who am I? What's my purpose here? Yep. And these feelings of, you know, do I belong? Kind of feeling, I think in your words, from another planet.
Yeah.
And that's something that this kind of helps you to see, because so much of what we think we are is informed by our conditioning of what other people have either rejected us for or accepted us for. And so we learn to put on this face of, you know, what's going to get us approval from other people. And it can cause a lot of pain for ourselves because we're denying parts of ourselves. And so this medicine can really help people to get in touch with those parts that they've been denying, and see where they've been kind of putting on this face for the sake of other people.
Yeah, I call it the mask of conformity, because the 11s often don't feel safe to show people who they are, because one of the biggest fears they have is rejection. So they'll pop on a mask and they'll lower their vibration. The vibration is very high, right? But they lower their vibration so that they'll meet everybody here. And they try to be, there's a second key. They try to be who they think everybody wants them to be. And part of their misery is the fact that they're wearing the mask and they wonder, well, nobody gets me. Well, of course they don't get you. You got the mask on and people are responding to the mask. I find it so profound. It was kind of something a little off topic, I guess, but recently I've been sort of thinking about this whole deal with 2021 as a 5 universal year, which is about expansion. It's about unexpected events and feeling differently. And I know I'm definitely shifting and changing in weird ways, good ways, but I'm not the same person I was 3 weeks ago. I've really evolved and changed quite a bit, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And everybody else I'm hoping is going to be feeling somewhat the same. But I find it interesting that we are now at a time where the majority of the planet is being asked to put a mask on at the very time when we're asking everybody to take your masks off, So I just find it really, really interesting that we're being asked to put these masks on, but what it's asking us to do is to connect to the windows of the soul, right? We actually have to look in people's eyes and communicate on an entirely different level, because we don't realize how much we rely on lip reading. Mm-hmm. My brother is profoundly deaf, and I asked him the other day, I said, how are you coping with the masks? He said, it's brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. But people have been kind enough to hold their mask down for a second if he's in a store and he needs a bit of help, and they'll lead him in the right directions and pop it back up again. But he said, you don't realize how much you rely, especially if you're deaf, on lip reading. So anyway, just a little observation.
So. No, absolutely. And that's such a something that you realize is just even, aside from our treatment of the masks, of just being in a human body and what a sense of separation that creates from another person, that, we perpetuate in all these different ways, that there's all these senses of being separate and not belonging. And one of the things that people will kind of realize when they're doing this work is, if they have a mystical experience and kind of feel that, people will say oneness or a lot of different terms, but just that real deep level of connection with the rest of humanity and the planet. And, that I think there's a lot of hope that the more that we accept these things and use them in a productive way, that we can have that sense of connection with each other to treat each other better and to treat the planet better, because we're headed in some interesting directions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the common statements right now is, we are all one, we're all in this together kind of thing. And it's true. And yet at the same time, we're very much apart because we're not allowed to be together, right? So we're not allowed to gather, and thank God for Zoom. I'd be losing my mind if I didn't have Zoom, but it's a very, very controversial time. I don't know if controversial is the right word to use, but energetically, it's a very, very difficult time that we're in right now. And I feel that everybody is just scrambling to find out who they are. And I feel this is the first time that we have really been faced with, what's next? Everything was kind of going. A lot of people will say, geez, I can't wait until everything goes back to normal. And I'm like, it's not going back to normal. Normal doesn't exist anymore. And in my mind, that's kind of a good thing. Like, there will be a lot of positive things that will happen as a result of everything that we're going through, but it sure is hard to see it right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it's how do we construct a new reality from this better, because we don't ever want to be clinging to the past and holding to old ways of being just because that's how we've always done it. We want to find a way to move forward and
this is going to be a very different year, 2015, from what 2020 was. 2020 was the 4, and that was all about feeling a little bit stuck, a little bit trapped. And of course, that's when many of us went into real major lockdowns, right? And people lost their jobs, and all kinds of stuff happened in that year of 4. As many people tell me that they're having a hard time, as do, wow, it's the best thing ever happened to me, because it allowed me a little bit of time to have a time out so I can really look at my life a little differently. So that's always good. But 2015, of course, 2021, we're going to be looking at a lot of expansion. We need to be a lot more flexible, a lot more resilient in the face of change this year, and accept that change is necessary, right? So with that, we've got access to tools like psychedelics that will help us with that experience to those who choose to experiment with that. So when we get together on Monday, January the 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be talking about, I'm just going through my notes here, why psychedelics are not considered to be a hallucinogen. We'll be talking about a brief history of the psychedelic use. I think that's going to be really cool. And we'll be looking at modern therapeutic spiritual practices associated with this, with the psychedelics. And we're going to be looking at contraindications and the risks involved. I'm so happy we'll be talking about that. And the relevance, particularly for the master number 11s. This is going to be a great talk for anybody who is interested in understanding how psychedelics can benefit them and how to use them in a really responsible way so you don't get yourself into too much trouble.
Yes.
Because with anything you can, right? So, I mean, we just want to give you both sides of that coin.
Yes,
so to be able to attend this event, you need to be a member. So you go to www.masternumber11.com and you can join. You can join for a month if you want. If that's all you want to do, that's great. No problem. It's $11, right? How can you miss this for $11? So there's all kinds of other videos within the Master Number 11 portal that explain everything from nutrition to grounding to psychic development, how to protect yourself psychically. There's just umpteen videos in there and really good information. So I would invite you to check that out. But thanks, Grace. I really appreciate you being here today.
Yes, thank you. My pleasure.
I can't wait until next Monday. We get together and we'll do this live, and everybody's gonna have an opportunity to talk directly with Grace. This will be a live Zoom event. If you're part of the membership, you'll be able to get a Zoom link, and that will let you in, and we'll be able to talk and ask questions and have some live communication going on. So if you want to talk to an expert on the use of psychedelics, Grace is your gal. So hope to see you there. Thanks so much, Grace. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See you then.
Bye for now.